Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha. Jai Ganesha. The elephant in the room and not in the room. This is a call for clarity in an age of confusion. For example, there is a tendency to conflate Hindu, Indian, and India as though they were interchangeable terms. They are not necessarily so. And failing to distinguish them produces not only misunderstanding, but also misplaced criticism and misplaced identity. Let's begin simply. India is, of course, a nation. An Indian is an ethnicity and or a citizen tied to that nation. A Hindu is one who follows or is shaped by the tradition of Hindu dharma, Hinduism, the Hindu religion. These categories may overlap, but they do not necessarily collapse into one another. For example, one may be from India and of Indian ethnicity and a Hindu. Another may be born in India, but not ethnically Indian, though Indian by nationality, and perhaps of no religion at all. Many Indians are not Hindus, and many Hindus are not Indians nor from India. And there are many Indian Hindus not from India, so there are many combinations. In modern discourse, the critique of India, its politics, policies, and social issues is often taken as a critique of Hinduism. Conversely, misunderstanding of Hinduism is sometimes projected onto Indians as a people. This would be as ludicrous as equating Christianity with Italy because of the Vatican, or reducing it to the modern Middle East because of its historical origins. Such reasoning would be immediately recognized as simplistic, if not absurd. Yet when it comes to Hinduism, this confusion is often accepted without question. In recent years, the term Hindutva has entered into public discourse with increasing frequency. Some describe Hindutva simply as Hinduness, a culture or civilizational expression of Hindu identity. In this sense, it is presented as a broad affirmation of heritage, values, continuity, religion. However, the historical development of the term reveals that Hindutva was articulated not merely as a religious or spiritual concept, but as a framework for defining national identity. Over time, it has been taken up by organizations and political movements as a basis for envisioning India as a Hindu Rashtra. This gives rise to an important distinction. Hindu Dharma is a vast, plural, and philosophical tradition. Hindutva, depending on its usage, can function as a cultural expression of identity or a political ideology of nationalism. To ignore the cultural meaning is to oversimplify. To ignore the political application is to overlook reality. Clarity requires that we recognize both. A global tradition, Hinduism is not confined to geography, ethnicity, or nationality. There are Hindus across the world, and true to any religion, one may, through study and commitment, become a Hindu. Understanding these three terms brings further clarity in today's popular yoga movement. All of yoga, of course, comes from the Hindus and not from India. Yoga is not India's gift to the world. It's a gift from the Hindus. And importantly, what do we do when we receive a gift? Do we deny the giver? Do we turn around and sell the gift? Yoga is, of course, all about the Hindu religion to which anyone can belong. And true to any religion, a teacher is always of that religion. Now, let's examine jati, varna, and caste. Now, few topics can generate more confusion and more heat than what is commonly called the caste system. Yet, much of this confusion arises not from the reality itself, but from a linguistic and conceptual conflation of the three very different ideas: jati, varna, and caste. To speak clearly, we must separate what has long been blended together: three terms, three realities. Jati refers in its most basic sense to birth group, family, lineage, community perhaps. It is local, fluid, and historically tied to family, religion, and community. For example, there are Scottish clans, there are Jewish lineages, Chinese surnames, there are European nobles and Western societal demarcations. There are high school cliques, even gangs, etc. This shows the natural human tendency to form groups and different types of families. So jati is basically the family one is born into. Varna, however, outlines four broad archetypical groupings. Now, in the Sanskrit, this is the Brahmin, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Sudra, respectively teachers, warriors, business-minded, and craftsmen and laborers. These four occupations are found in any functioning society. All societies need laborers, craftsmen, builders. All societies have business people. All societies have warriors, military, police, EMTs, and all societies have teachers. This is the way a society functions. Of course, due to human nature, we can often feel inferior or superior, but we need all four occupations. And within the Hindu Yoga Dharma, we have a concept called the Purusha Sukta. So if we think about it, that all of us, to one degree or another, do all four of these things. If we are a fully integrated human being, we all do basic labor, clean the house, cut the lawn, do repairs. We all run the business of running our households. And if we have any moxie at all, we all protect our loved ones. And we, in various degrees, teach. However, society in general, most people will fall into these broad categories, and the important thing here is that we should enter into these varnas, which literally means tone, meaning one's vibration, because we like to do that. We feel very attracted to it. We feel attracted to helping and serving others, so we become a kshatriya. We're very much attuned to craftsmanship, working with our hands. So we're naturally a Sudra. When it becomes degraded is when we feel, again, inferior or superior, or perhaps are forced into an occupation to which we do not resonate. We don't have a vibration, a tone, if you will, a varna. Now, caste, on the other hand, this is a colonial term, and it's derived from the Portuguese casta, and it was later systematized by the British into rigid classification. Casta means breed. The colonial compression of British administrators collapsed jati and varna into a simplified hierarchy, turning a fluid system into a rigid one. The continuing confusion today. These terms are often used interchangeably, leading to distortion and misunderstanding. And again, here is where Hindus have to step up to the plate. Hindus are the only ones that can clarify these terms. Hindus must acknowledge that the continual casual and really misuse of the word caste has allowed this confusion to persist. Are we lazy Hindus? L-A-Z-Y? If so, we lose a zero, yoga, etc., etc. Remember, the wisdom of Ganapati used to hold on to that which you need to hold on to and let go of that which is not part of your tradition, part of your lexicon. Hindus, why hold on to God and caste? Why let go of yoga, kundalini, chakras? So too, the misuse of the term God. So jati is lived social reality. Varna is natural proclivities and occupations. Caste is a colonial classification and a way to control the population, and a word that should be completely eradicated from the Hindu lexicon. But we'll see if Hindus have the moxie to do this. Therefore, to untangle jati, varna, and caste is not merely an academic exercise. It has to be an act of intellectual honesty and actually an act of dharma. Remember again, the word casta, Portuguese, means lineage or breed, and of course it's not a Sanskrit concept at all, but a European label applied to Indian society. What it attempts to describe are two distinct ideas. Jati referring to the birth-based communities into which one is born, and Varna, philosophical framework classifying human tendencies according to qualities and actions. Over centuries, many jati groups practice intermarriage, which naturally preserves certain familiar traits and regional traits across generations. This can give the impression of a lineage continuity, not as absolute purity, but as a patterned inheritance within communities. Yet this must be understood alongside the remarkable diversity of the Indian subcontinent, where variation in appearance, language, and culture is profound, from the Himalayas down to Kanyakumari and everything in between. Over 20 official languages and numerous dialects. Differences in cuisine. A balanced approach recognizes that while birth and upbringing shape context and conditioning, they do not imprison human potential. Varna, rightly understood, points to qualities that can evolve, while jati reflects social history, not your spiritual destiny. When seen clearly, what was once entangled as caste becomes disentangled into its proper components. Now, remember we said this is the elephant in the room and the elephant not in the room. We're looking for some solutions here. In Hindu symbolism, Ganesha represents wisdom, discernment, and the ability to remove obstacles. Now, it's important, fellow Hindus, that, and people in general, when we look at these spirit beings, which this is part of our human nature, we could look at, especially in Hinduism, in three ways. First of all, one can appreciate the art. It's great art here, whether it's carvings in wood, stone, brass, bronze casting. Great craftsmanship. This, in and of itself, elevates one's vibration, if you will, like going into a museum. You feel a certain kind of higher vibration, if you will, where there's great art, craftsmanship, painting. Now, number two is that obviously there's something going on here. When we see an elephant head, we see a monkey-faced deity, we see many arms. This is the power of symbolism, and we humans are symbolic creatures. We learn through symbolism. The old cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And just look around your home right now. Surely you have many images, knickknacks, etc. Pictures, and they'll have meaning to you. This is important to understand the symbolism of the Hindu devatas. Now, number three, and this is where we very often get in trouble in all the religions of the world, is when we take what are basically invisible beings to others. You may have your own personal experiences. That's perfectly valid. But if we take an invisible spirit being to others and try to make that requisite knowledge for all, that is where we have historically got into immense trouble, to say the least. So the number three one, keep that to yourself and those of a like mind. And of course, don't try to push that on the whole world. And then look at your symbolism, enjoy the craftsmanship, and everything will be copacetic. So if we look, for example, at Ganesha, powerful, powerful symbolism. Again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Look at this deity. He has an elephant head, a human body, and considered a divine being. This is how we as individuals should look at ourselves. We are animal, we are human, and we are divine. Divine represents the inner essence, which Hindus call the Atmana. Others may call it the soul or the spirit. And when we look at Ganesha, we see prominently his elephant's trunk, Vilambita Sutra, and it is a reminder to logically, in life, seek to be strong, flexible, sensitive. This is the beautiful qualities of this appendage. It's strong, it's flexible, it's sensitive. Doesn't this make sense in life? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and soulfully, if you will, Atma Darshana. Seek to be strong, yet be flexible, yet be sensitive. Then the trunk often goes to the sweet treat, the laddu in his hand. Then life is sweet. Just think of the opposite of these qualities. If we're weak, if we're inflexible, if we're insensitive, life won't be sweet for us or those around us. It'll be rather sour. He has one broken tusk. This goes back to an ancient story. We have many stories within Hinduism. And again, this is what we humans do. We're storytellers from cave paintings on to watching TV, movies, Netflix, YouTube. He was taking dictation and his pen broke, so he immediately broke his tusk and continued the writing, which shows a dedication to the work, to the study, and a certain sense of humility. That's your prized possession if you're an elephant. The one broken tusk represents humility, which is wisdom, never to be confused with humiliation. Then we look at Ganesha's big ears. Suniye, listen up. Listen to the inner wisdom. Listen to outer wisdom. He has a gada, a mace or hatchet. He has a pasa, a robe. It's a symbolic reminder, again, in life to know what to hold on to, what to get rid of. Hold on to the good things. Let go of those negativities. It's like the in-breath and the out-breath. And then life will take on a sense of santosha or contentment. That's the meaning of his big belly. He's really a very Santa Claus-looking figure. Contentment, santoshima. Often he's seen sitting with one foot down, one foot up, reminding us to live a balanced life. Keep one foot in the material world, be rational, be logical. In fact, if you look at the Yoga Sutras of the Saiva Hindu Guru Patanjali, which to all of the quote-unquote yoga people out there, this has nothing to do with any physical posture at all. Listen to our many podcasts and videos on the reality that yoga is Hindu and true to any religion, taught by Hindus and not for a fee. And of all the classic Hindu yogas, Hatha Yoga was the one that wasn't supposed to be on display. Unfortunately, it is. Again, we Hindus need to wake up and stop being lazy when it comes to our religion. Very active in the material world, but pretty lazy when it comes to defending our religion. So the one foot up and one foot down, take care of business in the world. As Patanjali said, vitaraka vichara. Be reasonable. Vitaraka, vichara. Exercise sound judgment in your life. Keep one foot in the material world, but keep your other foot tucked up into the Atmana, into your inner world, which we all have. We all have our inner life, our interior life. And then Ganapati has, as many of our devatas do, an animal counterpart. Isn't this beautiful? We see the divine flowing not through just humans, but the animals as well. And a little mouse. How humble. This very figure of Ganesha and his little mouse Mushika, it elicits humility and a sense of jovialness. Makes you laugh a little bit. If we can't laugh at ourselves and others, we haven't had a very deep relationship with our inner essence, which is pure love itself, Ananda, Satchit Ananda. So the elephant in the room is the visible confusion and the misuse of all of our terms. India, Indian, Hindu, Jati, Varna, caste, Yoga, chakras, Kundalini. The elephant not in the room is the missing wisdom, Hindus, of discernment, humility, clarity. This is what Ganesha represents, the wisdom of Mahaganapati. So, to untangle Jati, Varna, caste, India, Indian, and Hindu, to clarify that yoga is Hindu, is not merely an academic exercise. Again, it's an act of intellectual honesty. In other words, an act of dharma as opposed to adharma. Adharma, lobha, krodha, kama, the three stripes, the tripundra, greed, anger, lust. How do you counter that? Dana, dayadvam, damyata, giving, compassion, control. The wisdom of humility. Let's think of bowing before the mandir. There's a lot of similarities in the different religions of the world, but there's also striking differences which we have to recognize. On the philosophical plane and on the practical plane. For example, you never go into a Hindu temple with shoes on. And you really never go barefoot in a Christian church. Physically, very different. There's a certain humility that takes place when a Hindu approaches their mandirs, which may be a small shrine or a huge, massive mandir. And something very interesting for those that have been to the larger mandirs in India, sometimes there's a real elephant out front that blesses you before you go into the mandir, before the mantras, before the philosophy. There stands the elephant, Gajana, not carved in stone, not painted in symbolism, not reduced to metaphor, but a breathing, massive presence. And you approach with all your learning, all your accomplishments, all your carefully assembled ideas about this or that. You might be strong, you might be highly educated, you may be quote-unquote spiritually seasoned, doesn't matter. You bow. And then something remarkable happens. The elephant's trunk rests gently upon your head. Not violently, not forcefully, not in domination, but with gravity. These are the foundational qualities: Ganapati, earth element, gravity, the Om, Karma Yoga, all basic foundations. And as the trunk rests on your head, you bow further. And you do not bow because you're convinced. You do not bow because you lost an argument. You bow because scale has revealed itself. The body understands before the mind, perhaps. There's something larger here. Something greater than us. Something calm. Something immovable. Something that doesn't even need to assert itself. The Vilambita Sutra, the trunk doesn't crush. It simply presses. And your neck gently softens. This is your first initiation. Before entering the sacred, humility must precede insight. Before knowledge, bowing. Before discourse, surrender, sharanam. Before metaphysics, proportion. The ego lives in the head, in thought, in position, in certainty, but the elephant gently lowers that. Ignorance does not shatter with noise, it collapses quietly. Like a rigid posture finally released. In that moment, philosophy, religion becomes embodied. You're not stronger than the elephant. You cannot out-argue an elephant. You cannot intellectualize its presence. You just stand there, at first stiff beneath its weight. And gently, it makes you bow. not in humiliation, but as a strong recognition of who you are. Tattvamasi aham brahmasmi jyoti shakti ananda shanti. Love, light, and energy. Om. This are we, with emotions, mind, and body. Om Mushika Vahana Modakahasta Chamara Karana Vilambita Sutra Vamana Rupa Maheshvara Putra Vigna Vinayaka Pada Namaskar. Om Maha Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sharanam Ganesha. Jai Shri Ganesha, Jai Hindu Yoga Dharma.